Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Curt Schilling Baseball Show, show number 16. I'm Curt Schilling, and he is Bill Graff. Good morning, Bill. What's up?
How are you, Curt? Doing really, really well.
Our early season discussions are coming to fruition with this rule changes and stuff, which is where we're going to start. Bill dug up some stats, and it's as we suspected. Now, in a game that's 100 years old, generally when you see year-over-year increases in statistics, you'll see an increase of point something percent or 2% or to some degree that percent. Not this. Stolen bases are up 35%. 35% over 2022 so far this year. Here's some pretty amazing stuff. Only 2 base runners have been thrown out at third attempting to steal. The limited throw over, which is what I expected to be a very significant piece of this. No runner has been thrown out after the pitcher is thrown over the first 2 times. I mean, you're going to see some crazy numbers, and that, for you fantasy folks out there, absolutely, it's a trend that's going to continue. And I think for the guys up front, the guys that are leading the league, you'll see some pretty insane numbers. Guardians are up 25 as of Monday, and that would break the overall record for a season. The O's are at 24, Mets are at 20. You're going to see teams running as you're seeing them run. Christian Javier has allowed 7 stolen bases in 17 innings. No Syndergaard, who was a nightmare holding runners before this, has allowed 6 in 16. Chris Sales allowed 5 in 12 innings. Carlos Carrasco 5 in 8.2 innings. Those are insane numbers that will play out over the season. And I think, well, so let me back up. If you, I never gave up a lot of stolen bases because in the minor leagues, I had a pitching coach named Dick Bosman who worked with me religiously for a year in AAA on being quick to home. And generally when I was playing, I was 1.15 seconds or less usually to home with the runner on first. When you get to 1.2 and above, you're talking about guys that can run will steal on you. So I was 1.15 and below, and I had a decent move. I don't think I ever really threw over a ton of times with the runner over any runner, but I recognize that in the National League, it was very much a part of the game because the leagues were different. The American League, you didn't run a lot. National League, you ran a lot more. That's going to change to be probably both leagues. But these guys aren't. Another aspect of a short minor league stint is the lack of innings and work on fundamental things, and being quick to home is a fundamental thing. And they're not getting the work to become that, and then they're going to pay for it in the big leagues. And it's really, really, I think, really going to have an effect on the bullpens. Number one, and if you think about this stat, no runner has been thrown out after 2 pitcher throws over twice. Only 2 runners have been thrown out at third attempting to steal. What's the new extra inning rule, right? The new extra inning rule is you start with a runner on second base. If third base,
the ghost runner.
Yep. That's going to change those outcomes. So we'll talk later in the week also about the other rule changes, notably the shift, which is having an impact.
And Curt, it just seems that the really fast guys are the guys who are taking every opportunity and always being successful.
Yeah, I mean,
and the kids.
If you think about it, with the new rule, for the most part, a walk is almost becoming as good as a hit in the sense that you're going to be in scoring position if you're a runner. You're on first base. You're going to be on second base, with rare exception, if these rules stay. And that's, again, I don't know if that's the desire for Major League Baseball, but as a pitcher, I think there's an immense amount of work on the side to put in to become. You've got to create a game plan with runners that allows you to keep them at first base. It allows you to stop them from stealing, because 99.9% of stolen bases prior to the rule change they weren't stolen off the catcher. they were still not the pitcher because the pitcher wasn't fast enough. This is going to change a lot of that percentage. And as a pitcher, not for the better. So,
well, and
yeah,
there's a few teams that have decided this is going to be their personality. You know, the Indians, the O's, the Diamondbacks. I read articles where the middle of their outfield are all three speedsters. You get to that part of the order, and anybody gets on, and it's chaos.
Right. Well, and you're also almost like when you send a runner in a hit to the outfield, you're not relying on, but you're counting on perfect defense to prevent. That's not there's going to be overthrows, there's going to be missed throws, there's going to be other things that happen where that one base becomes two. And with the incredible decrease in outs, runs are going to go up.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's, as a pitcher, that's not fun for me. But everybody's got to adjust. Speaking of some pitching and speaking of streaks, the Rays, they didn't make it to the show, but they did go 13. I remember the Atlanta Braves being a 13-0 guy a long time ago. But the streak ended at 13, and it's funny because you hear fans saying, oh, yeah, well, that's because they put the worst teams on the schedule. Well, if you think about the schedule and the worst teams, the best teams in baseball beat the worst teams like the Rays beat the worst teams. They dominate them, runs against, and they win. And that's exactly what they did. They're going to be very, very good. They are going to be a contender in the AL East, and Yankee fans probably should shut up because everything they do is coming back to bite them in the ass karma-wise, with Stanton going on the DL. And, thank God for Garrett Cole, who's doing his thing. He actually did it beating Minnesota the other day, 2-0 on a complete game gem, which is Garrett Cole is and I know, again, this sounds like kind of the old guy get off my lawn, but my goodness, what a refreshing guy to watch pitch. Him and Sandy Alcantara, for me, are I'm not sitting there waiting for their outing to end, which I think is
I heard Aaron Boone talking about Garrett Cole, saying what a consummate professional he is about attacking things and how he thinks through every start and how he gets himself ready. And it's what you've talked to us about all the work you have to do before you step on the mound.
Well, and there's a big difference. Think about that. I can't explain this and quantify in numbers what this means. But if you're getting prepared to get 15 to 18 outs a night, and I'm getting prepared to get 27, it's a completely different mindset. And Garrett Cole and Alcantara, for the most part, and I don't know many others, are getting ready. They understand they're getting paid in their minds. They're getting paid to pitch 9 innings. Those are my 9 innings as a starting pitcher. And there's a sense of pride you take in that. There's no greater feeling, I can tell you, than walking off the mound to shake your catcher's hand after the 27th out. That's just such an amazing feeling. And there's a desire to get that. And Alcantara has it. Cole realizes it. These are also two guys who understand they're not getting paid exorbitant money to pitch. They're getting paid to win. And that's another very different mentality from a lot of pitchers in the big leagues.
I had put in the rundown, Curt, for us to talk about the Twins, and then Garrett Cole did that to the Twins.
Yeah.
But their pitching staff is doing an amazing job.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got to tell you, there are times when things happen, team-wide, staff-wide, bullpen-wide, lineup-wide, that are contagious, and it becomes a kind of a one-upsmanship game. Their staff ERA is 2.6. Their team whip, walks and hits the innings pitched, is 0.96. That's obscene. Pablo Lopez, Sonny Gray, and Joe Ryan have been phenomenal. 6 and 1, I think, combined as of Monday. Gray's got a 0.53. Lopez 1.7 with a whip of 0.81. Ryan is 284 with a 0.63 whip. I don't know how the hell he has a 2.84 with a 0.63 whip. Clearly unsustainable levels of success. But it's also, I don't think it's fluky. I think you're looking at a very good pitching staff and a team that will pitch its way to contention as long as they can stay healthy, which leads to the next line and next story. A guy who I've always liked his arm, his stuff, and everything about him. Brandon Woodruff is on the DL, or on the IL. I'm sorry, don't cancel me. He has a grade 2 subscapular strain. Again, another injury that sounds incredibly harmless and is pretty much the opposite. This could be a season ender. Just as easily as he could be back, it could be over for the season. I mean, you know, I talked earlier in the year, I used a rubber band to explain what a strain looks like. You know, picture a rubber band overstretching and how the tensile strength starts to weaken. And that's permanent loss. Even when you bring the rubber band back, that's lost forever. Not the same in a muscle, but the same concept. You're overstretching the muscle, fiber tissue tears, and the muscle has to regain its strength, tensile strength. The problem is you can't do that without complete rest, Bill. You can't. It's not I'm going to just throw nice and easy. You can do nothing. And I would argue that window. So think about this. You have a situation where you can do nothing. So do you do nothing for 2 weeks, for 4 weeks, for 6 weeks? Because if you do nothing for 2 weeks and you throw that first day and it's not healed, you're back to day one. Same thing with 4 weeks. If you do it for 4 weeks and you throw that day on the 4th week and it still hurts, you're back to day one. So you're looking at a significant window of time, and it depends on the severity of the strain as well. But you know, he remarked, and I think this is pretty telling, that if this had been the All-Star break, Bill, he said he'd shut it down for the year.
Yeah.
Which tells me that it's a significant strain because the pain is severe.
Correct.
Which tells me again that if you don't take the proper time, and I don't know what that is, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks of zero throwing, zero activity, zero anything, and you don't get that right, perfectly right, or you're overcautious, you're back at day one whenever that is and the season's lost. And a guy you definitely want to see on the mound because he's good for baseball when he pitches. He's fun to watch. But this is, I'm hoping he gets better soon. But I'm talking now. Go back, Bill, to what I was talking about early in the year. If you sit a pitcher for 8 weeks, he's basically coming starting day one of his offseason program at that point.
So he's 8 weeks away.
Yeah, how long does it take for it's 8 weeks to ramp up?
Yeah. So
you're looking probably at 4 months minimum, if it's as severe as it sounds. Minimum.
Which, and the Brewers, the Brewers are a team whose staff might be able to overcome a guy like this because they're still playing well and pitching well, but that's still a big hit for the Brewers.
Oh, it's a huge hit. It's a huge hit. You're number 1A. It's a huge hit. But I would expect that if the Brewers are intent on being good multiple years, that this is something they don't rush back. You probably won't see him again this year, and you just rest him till next season, that would be the only way to guarantee his health and coming back would, in my opinion, would be you rest him until the offseason and then start his next year's program if it's as severe as, because otherwise you're going to be gambling. So,
and they're still coming off beating the Padres 3 out of 4.
Yeah. With Miley beating Darvish in the final game, San Diego, on to the next note. San Diego desperately needs Joe Musgrave. You know what? It's one of the, in all the numbers, he made his last minor league start, punched out 8 and 5, tossing 69 pitches. So that all is well. He's fine. The Padres staff is struggling. They've only gone 6 innings 9 times. Their ERA is 4.6. There are only 7 relievers, which I think might change here soon. They're 8 and 9, which they're not living up to the preseason hype. Here's the thing. For the most part, you can count on ball players to be who you think they are. And that by that I mean, most of these guys have track records, and there's no reason to think that they won't be where they're supposed to be when the season ends. You know, you hear about guys who are off to a hot start, they'll revert to the mean, or teams that are off to a hot start will revert to the mean. Same thing for guys that are struggling. I think the Padres are so talented. It's going to be listen, if they end the year 500, that would be a massive underperform. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think any of that is going to happen. I think they're going to be fine. It's just they're going through a rut. What you can't do, and what they haven't done, you can't bury yourself in April. And by that, I mean you can't be 5-15 or 5-18 at the end of April. You can't be in a division where a team like the Rays have gone 13-1 and be 4-12 and hope to make that up. You just don't make up 10 games. So April is about staying healthy and not burying yourself, just like spring training is about getting out of town healthy. You want to end April healthy, and you want to end April with a 500 record if you're struggling.
And truly no one in the NL West is separating themselves.
No. And again, the thing that's going to make it much more of a challenge now for divisional races and for teams that do fall behind is you're not getting as many games against the teams above you as you used to. That can be better or worse, but the fact of the matter is the control of your own destiny thing is not what it once was. So those games become doubly crucial, your interdivisional games, which is probably not a bad thing. So let's go hit around the league. I like this approach. I think it's something we might pick up and take around the league each week, which is Bill has noted some performances. A couple things on here I'm excited to talk about. Hunter Brown of the Astros, 2-0 with a 1.9. His stuff, he sits mid-90s with a 92-mile-an-hour slider, which is absurd. And also a guy who you're going to look at, Tommy John, unfortunately. Power sliders like that are literally impossible to stay healthy with because of the stress and strain and the things that happen to your arm and elbow when it's the hardest pitch to manipulate, I think, in the world. You got 11 swings and misses on 99 pitches the other day, 6 of those coming on sliders. Houston is 7-9, struggling a little bit. But this kid's legit, and I'm sure from a fantasy perspective, he is someone that's already picked up. If he's not, your league sucks.
And a really good story. He was a 5th-round pick.
Yeah.
Like we talked in the last show, it's a lot on this kid, and he's really delivered. Yeah,
and he's 23.
Yeah.
That's the big 23 is very, very young. The amount of stuff he does. So anyway, great story. Great story coming out of Houston for a team that's not struggling. And I'm going to tell for all the people that listen to me in your preseason prop bets and put money on Rookie of the Year in the National League to be Brett Baty, that you're welcome. At AAA, he was hitting his slash line was 400, 500, 886. For those of you not counting at home, that's a 1386 OPS, which is good, I guess. He had 5 bombs. The Mets called him up. He's special.
Yeah,
he is special, and he is going to be. And here's the other thing, and you've heard me talk about this with Buck Showalter. Buck got to know him in spring training, and there's no chance in hell that Buck Showalter allows this call-up to happen without the understanding in his mind that Brett Baty's ready for the big leagues. None. So that should be a very comforting thought for you Mets fans, who I know you're not off to the start you hoped you would be, but you'll be fine. The Mets are going to be fine, and as long as they can stay healthy or get healthier. Another guy we talked about, but Brett Baty, put your money, put a prop bet on him for Rookie of the Year. I think you might be pleasantly surprised. A guy we talked about early in the year, we actually had a long discussion about this gentleman. He is over in Japan. Trevor Bauer made his first start for the Yokohama Bay Stars in the minor leagues. Went 4, punched out 6, gave up 4 hits, said he felt great. He's just going to need a couple innings before he gets called up. I think he's going to dominate over there. just because of well, he's a great pitcher, not person, but great pitcher.
He was suspended for 176 games.
Yeah, yeah.
And to me, him showing up over there, everybody deserves a second chance, and I hope he does well.
Well, here's the thing, Bill, and we're getting off of we're going into social commentary, which is fine, but he didn't commit a crime.
Right.
All right. Now, you can morally and ethically disagree, and I do, with everything that was talked about, but there's every reason to believe that the young ladies involved in this were looking to make a lot of money, because apparently all the evidence pointed to consensual acts by both parties. So he didn't commit a crime. This is the holier than thou Major League Baseball, with Pete Rose out of the Hall of Fame and them gambling and allowing gambling at an extraordinary level now, taking some sort of moral stance and high ground. The thing about it was, you didn't have to ban him. You had to know the game has gotten so woke, teams wouldn't sign him. What team is going to put up with that bullshit and given the kind of guy he is that his teammates have made clear, his teammates didn't want him back in LA. Now, if this was a guy that was a good in the locker room and guys like to be around, they would have fought for him.
Right.
Nobody did. Nobody wanted this guy around. I think he's a clown. I think I think he's an outstanding pitcher. Obviously, I think he's got incredible baseball IQ. I think he's an effing idiot. But none of that. Just because you're stupid and ignorant and you're dumb and you do things that you should have known better doesn't mean you should be banned from baseball.
There were a lot of bad characters in baseball through the years.
Right. Yeah. The character clause in a sport with, well, I don't even want to get in. We'll get into that someday, but we're not going to.
Let's talk about a really, really good player.
Yeah. So I've said this, and I still believe this. I think the injuries have hurt this claim. I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. Now I have to caveat that and say the greatest hitter because his teammate might be the greatest player anybody alive ever sees. Mike Trout hit a double this past weekend. Think about this. Mike Trout, and again, we're talking about a sport that's over 100 years old. Hundreds of thousands of players. I believe it's probably at least hundreds of thousands of players. Games, years, seasons. Mike Trout is the fourth player in history with 300 doubles, 300 homers, and 200 stolen bases. The only other players to do that, two cheaters and one of the greatest that ever lived. Willie Mays. So it's Mike Trout and Willie Mays in my mind. And then Barry Bonds and A-Rod. Mike Trout and Willie Mays. I mean, when you're on a list with something only Willie Mays has ever done legally, wow. Both center fielders, by the way, don't lose that because both were Gold Glove caliber, spectacular defensive outfielders and are. I got to tell you, one of the things, as a side note to this, one of the things that really I never noticed when I played, and I always poo-pooed when I read it as a retired player, but I came to realize is a real thing. As you watch players get older, guys that are fast, their stolen bases go down, and it's not because they're slower. It's because, and you hear them say, I don't want to take the beating. And if you look at Mike Trout's stolen base totals, that's exactly what's happened. He doesn't run anymore. And not to near the impact. And apparently there is a beating on the body to be taken from stealing bases. And I never realized that. Just a small point, but I just thought it was very curious as you look at guys who, and it generally tends to be the physical guys like Mike Trout. Mike Trout is a monster of a man. You have to stand next to him to understand how thick and big he is. You don't see the Vince Coleman, the long, slender, skinny guys, I think, because the stolen base is such a part of their arsenal, or maybe the key part. Whereas it's just a side note to a guy who hits 300 homers and 300 doubles. So again, kudos and awesome stuff.
I thought about this next part of the show, Curt, as I was watching baseball this weekend, and all of a sudden it was comebackers dominating video highlights.
And I'm going to tell you why. If you, again, the game is almost, what, over 100 years old, right, Bill?
Yep.
How many players pre-1970 do you remember being hit in the face? Rocky Calavito?
Yeah.
I mean, that was, his career ended.
Tony Conigliaro.
I was thinking of Calavito.
Yeah, yeah.
Conigliaro.
Conigliaro. And that ended his career.
Right. But it was an extremely rare event and occurrence.
Right.
Incredibly rare. Because it's almost scientifically, it's almost impossible to get hit in the face on a comebacker, because your body will react to a degree and at a speed that will prevent that event from happening. That skill only stays with you if you work on it. In spring training, you take PFP, you take tons of comebackers and all the things that go with that. You understand fielding your position. We used to do PFP is pitcher's fundamental practice. Early in my career, we used to have PFP practice during the season. It's the same exact thing with guys getting hit in the face as hitters. It's something that the more at bats you get, you only get hit in the head with a pitch or in the face with a pitch if you're comfortable in the box. You only get comfortable in the box if you're facing a pitcher you're not worried about coming in. Right? And with the lack of command of the modern day pitcher compared to the past, they're not effectively wild inside. I'm pretty sure I never hit a guy in the head, ever. I could have if I wanted to. I hit, I think 52 guys in my career. I would tell you I hit less than 10 by accident. And those were like brush the jersey kind of hits. I never hit anybody solid because if I was aiming for you, I hit you. And if I wasn't aiming for you, for the most part, I didn't hit you because I didn't have run on my ball. These guys today have their lack of command. I'll bet you, and I'm going to go out and limb and say right now, I'll bet you hit by pitches are over the last couple of years have increased from the past.
I think I did read that stat.
You do not get hit by a comeback. You never saw Greg Maddux get hit by a comeback. Through almost 5,000 innings. You never saw him get hit in the face. I got hit in the elbow in the minor leagues. Never got hit in the face.
That's good. And John Gray of the Rangers got hit in the elbow this week. And Gus Varlin of the Brewers was the one that it came to his face, and he broke his hand blocking the ball before it hit his jaw. Yeah.
No, this stuff is and it's I think it's kind of crazy to think that the speeds are any different than they used to be from a batted ball. Maybe a little bit hard, but the fact of the matter is pitchers can protect and defend themselves the very same way as hitters if the work is put in. There's always exceptions, right? But if you don't end in the proper position as a pitcher, it's going to be harder to defend yourself. And especially if you'll see a lot of pitchers who will fall off to the left or the right, and they'll be sideways, almost parallel to home plate, which is a different reaction because you're getting the ball in your peripheral instead of being square onto it. But again, Maddux he won 18 Gold Gloves or some ridiculous number. He had tons of 90% of his comebackers were dribblers because of the weak contact, but I guarantee you they all had him, but you don't see Clemens. Think about Pedro. Pedro didn't have a lot of comebackers, and Pedro didn't hit guys in the head for the most part. He threw up top a little bit, but it's a thing you learn in the minor leagues, and what goes back to the complaint I've been making since the beginning, which is guys aren't getting enough innings in the minor leagues, getting enough at bats in the minor leagues to learn the fundamental stuff. And when you have to learn something for the first time or experience something for the first time in the major leagues, it's a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. So, but no, I never hit someone in the head. Never threw at somebody's head. And I'm going to say this because I hit one guy in my career that I know he still believes it was in purpose, and it wasn't. And I'm going to plea on the air once again He's going into the Hall of Fame this year. Former teammate, one of the greatest human beings I've ever known, one of the greatest players I ever played with, Scott Rowland, hit a home run off me when he was at the Cardinals, and the next at bat I drilled him. Was completely unintentional. And I think to this day he believes that I did it on purpose, and I didn't. And I still feel bad about it. Because I didn't play the game that way. I didn't throw at you if you hit a home run off me. I threw at you because I was protecting a teammate, or because you did something really, really stupid. And hitting a home run off me wasn't stupid. So anyway.
I think the only person I ever heard or admitted that they threw inside and up was Bob Gibson.
Yeah.
Who basically said to you, well, if you lean over the plate, I'm throwing it.
Well, and he was trying to throw up and in. He wasn't trying to hit him in the head.
No, up and in.
It was recognition that if you got hit in the head, if he hit you in the head, it was because you were too comfortable, and that's your fault. You know, I disagree. Like I said, I disagree with the head stuff just because of the potential for a fatality or for a career-ending injury. I never, you know, it's like spearing in football or something. I never was interested in that, and I commanded the ball well enough that I could avoid your head. This is where you want it. Right here, Bill.
Soft part. If
you want to hit somebody and hurt them and have it be the best bruise that lasts the longest amount of time, you hit them right under the armpit. Because it's funny because I've seen the hitters, when the ball's coming at their armpit, they freeze because they don't know which way to go. So they can't get out of the way, and they do this, and that opens it up, boys. So
I think that's a great place to end this week, Curt. That's
all right.
Tremendous.
We'll catch up. Hey, listen, we'll talk about the shift on Friday.
Yeah, that'll be in there.
Impact on the game, but I got to tell you real quickly, my son, my oldest son, who is a baseball fan, obviously, he grew up in the clubhouse. He mentioned to me that he is actually very much watching baseball again and enjoying it because of the pitch clock. I made my old school old man yelling at the sky argument of, you know, you're not going to have drama, build up moments, but he didn't seem to care. And he's the fan. I mean, he's the guy that baseball's hoping to get back.
Right.
And he's back. He's watching a lot of baseball. He loves watching it. And he said it's very palatable with the pitch clock. Things are happening. It's, you know, so hats off, baseball. You are getting people back, because my son's not the only one. So
no, MLB gets the W on
Friday.
that.
OutKick.com, folks. OutKick.com. We're on Spotify now too. Check us out. Tell your friends. Baseball and baseball only on the Curt Schilling Show. I'm Curt Schilling. He's Bill Graff. We'll see you guys on Friday.